Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Esteemed FaceTime with Leaders, an initiative by World Development Corporation. I am Sunny Pancholi, anchor at World Development Corporation. FaceTime with Leaders is a platform for industry titans to share their experiences, thoughts, ideas, and best practices in order to inspire one another and future leaders. In a nutshell, we attempt to encapsulate the multi-decadal learnings acquired by these industry leaders. We also hope that by conducting these FaceTime with industry stalwarts interviews, we can bring together a global community of eminent personalities. By bringing together such visionaries on one platform, we hope to play a part in inspiring the lives of other leaders. Great learnings from great leaders undoubtedly assist everyone by identifying, nurturing, and using the trade secrets that are proven success formulas for many. And this is what we aim to achieve with these sessions, which are a gathering of industry stalwarts and a knowledge-sharing community. We have one such personality on FaceTime with Leaders with us today, Mr. Tanna. He is a highly experienced senior technology leader and management professional with an impressive career spanning over 2 decades in the semiconductor industry. He has worked with renowned multinational corporations, gaining expertise in various aspects of silicon architecture, microarchitecture development, RTL logic design, post-silicon debug, project management, and team leadership for semiconductor IPs and SoCs. Currently, he is designated as Principal Engineer, On-Chip Fabrics and Bridges Architect and Soft IP Product Owner at Intel India Pvt Limited, whereby he is responsible for delivering high-quality soft IP protocol bridge specifications and mentoring design and validating teams to meet the requirements of internal SoC customers. Welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, Mr. Tanna.
Thank you, Sunny. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Pleasure, sir. So, Mr. Tanna, did you have a knack for what you are doing, or did you develop it over time?
I would say it's both of that. It all started with during my school days we had this technical subjects in grade 8 to 10 in my school, basically, where I learned basics of the electrical engineering and the motor principles, electric motor principles, and engineering drawing, right? And at the same time, I was like other kids. I was very curious about radio at the time. My father had vacuum tube based radio at the time. I used to open it and then peek inside and try to make sense of how the box is producing sound, basically, right? So and then my father also had a small transistor, so I used to think how come this small box is also producing the sound and it doesn't have such big vacuum tubes, right? And I used to open and then see them. So my father saw that I had good technical aptitude in the technical subjects at the school, and also I had curiosity for electronics, right? So then he suggested me to take diploma in electronics. So I did a diploma in electronics, and then in third year I had this microprocessor subject, right? So there was a book by Ramesh Gaonkar, 8085 Intel processor. So that was the first time that I got introduced with Intel microprocessor, and that was my first love, kind of. And then I went on to do the graduation in electronics, and then post graduation I worked with CDAC Pune, where I was exposed to VLSI design, or the chip designing, right? That's where again my passion grew, and then I thought of doing the higher studies. So I went to IIT Bombay, did my master's in microelectronics. And then in 2003, it was big dream job that came in my lap. Basically, I joined Intel. I joined the Intel server CPU development team. Right there, I got a lot of opportunities to learn on microarchitecture and the architecture, the logic design of the microprocessors. And then there was no looking back. I got back-to-back challenges to work on, learn, and grow at Intel.
Great. So from reading a book based on Intel to working with Intel at topmost positions, wow, that's a great journey. Mr. Tanna, thank you for the excellent start to this interview. Your exceptional interpersonal skills are truly impressive. So continuing our conversation, we would like to know that what, according to you, are the most important factors for professional development?
So, at my job, I used my strengths to earn the performance currency. Performance currency helped me earn the trust currency at the organization. The trust currency helped me to build relationship, right? So earn the relationship currency. And once I built the relationship, and then it kept on giving me more and more opportunities, basically, right? So leverage. I leveraged my relationships whenever I faced difficulties. Leveraging the network when you face difficulties. There were management colleagues, all of them were at the giving the support, basically, right? So that was the critical part. And then I developed the depth first in my expertise area. That helped me build a professional confidence, right? Once built the confidence and achieved the high competency in one area, it it enabled me to take on more adjacent area work, basically, to build expertise in the adjacent areas. So its career growth is kind of spiral journey for me, right? So in one area you develop the expertise, you go from low competence area to the high competence area. Then again, once you achieve the high competence, then you look for adjacent area to expand, to expand your job scope, basically. And as you expand the job scope, right, along with that, you have to deal with the ambiguity as the job scope grows, basically. And also the international developmental assignments and the work assignments, while working at Intel and other companies, it helped me basically build more skills and knowledge and expand my network across geographies.
Right, absolutely. So how do you envision India's position in developing indigenous chips and other hardware equipment in the coming years? Basically, India becoming the world's hub for manufacturing electronics.
Yeah, I think there are three aspects to that, right? So so recently, as you know, we came out of COVID, and then we had significant chip shortage in the automotive industry and other sectors, basically, right? So the primary cause for that was that mainly the available capacity of the semiconductor manufacturing, right? And because of the pandemic, the auto industry lowered their forecast, basically, for the capacity that they demanded from the semiconductor manufacturers. So as they reduced their forecast and the capacity was allocated to other sectors, right? So that created the shortage, basically. The other factor is the local semiconductor demand in India itself is growing. And looking at this multiple two critical factors, right, our honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji came out with a very nice vision, with allocation of 76,000 crore of incentives for the semiconductor industry. That is that's that semiconductor policy from the government and the incentives that would help accelerate the the India's dream for having the semiconductor manufacturing in the India. And the design in India part of that, if you see, right, we already have many MNCs present in India with around 20% of semiconductor design talent present in India. And also Honorable Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji, who himself is an ex-Intelite who has worked on Intel Pentium design processor, right? He's leading this effort to bring this vision to real life, basically, right? And he has initiated few things like future design team formation, where the committee members of this future design team are from eminent professors from the top universities or institutes from India, the government institutions. Along with that, there is an advisory board from semiconductor industry leaders helping with this the future design committee, basically. And they have come out with the design linked incentives for the startups in India, basically the startups which are focusing specifically on semiconductor IP development and the semiconductor SoC development, right? So they have allocated around 1,000 crore of incentives for the startup semiconductor focused startups, right? They have created 100 crores of infrastructure fund for the semiconductor startups, where the tools required to design and build the semiconductor chips, right? They provide all that infrastructure support with the help of CDAC as a nodal agency, right? So these are some of the key initiatives that are accelerating these developments in India. Along with that, if you see, few days back I saw the news that UGC has announced professor of practice. So that's an excellent move, I would say, where the academic institutes and the professors there, they should welcome the industry experts to, come and teach to the students, right? So that way, the gap that we have been seeing, that, students passing out from institute, they are not ready for the industry. So with this professor of practice giving, lectures and, helping build the curriculum at the institutes, right, it will make students coming out of those institutes ready for the industry. That's another, important factor. Another thing I'm hearing is that, the VLSI syllabus, the syllabus, the coursework required for the chip design, that is being developed in consultation with the semiconductor experts now in India. And this new syllabus is going to be rolled out from academic year 23-24. So with this government, companies, and the academic institution, all of these initiatives together, I see that, we have very exciting time going ahead in India, basically.
Right. So, so much of investment is being done by the government into the semiconductor space. This is a little personal, but I would like to ask, do you invest in any of these semiconductor giant companies?
Well, as part of my employment, I do invest in my company. We have some benefit called, employee purchase plan. As part of that, I do invest in the company where I'm working for right now. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Tanna, you have received numerous awards in your professional life. Which of them is your biggest achievement and why?
So, I would say the recognition of, principal engineer by, Intel, right? So Intel recognized me as a principal engineer. There are many reasons, I consider this as the biggest achievement. The first reason is that, as you know, Intel is a leader in semiconductor and microprocessor development, right? And Intel has very solid process for nominating and selecting principal engineers, right? So there is a P committee formed by, senior principal engineers and fellows, which is the topmost technical position, technology leader position in Intel. So they review the nominations and they select the principal engineers. So this recognition I got for a chip that I was working on, right? This is the edge inference chip that was built ground up, where we used one fabric IP. Intel had acquired one company which was developing this fabric IP, and we used that fabric IP for the first time in, complex system on chip, the SoC that was being developed at Intel, basically. So as part of that contribution, I identified many enhancement features in the IP and the SoC architecture, which has potential to save millions of dollars in chip cost, basically, for the company. So recognition, appreciation from this senior leaders at Intel, and seeing that the contribution is having significant impact on Intel and the industry, that feels deeply satisfying, basically.
Congratulations, Mr. Tanna, for all your achievements. We all know that you have worked really hard for it. And we wish that this is just a feather in your head. There are many more to come, surely. Okay, so this semiconductor space is more or less related to technology. And here is our next question. Technology has changed rapidly in recent years, right? How has it helped the semiconductor industry of late? And what changes do you foresee with the advent of 5G and IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, Web 3.0, etc., etc.?
Yeah, so so far in the semiconductor industry, right? So a lot of growth in new technology, emerging technologies enables growth of the SoC, right? And there is always a challenge to develop these new chips productively at lower cost with better power, better performance, and better area, right? So industry was using the methodology called IP reuse, right? The intellectual property building blocks that we use in the SoC, that gets reused across SoCs and across market segments, basically. That was the method that was being used, right? And the tools, the EDA tools, right? The electronic design automation tools that gets used for designing these chips, there were a lot of innovations in those tools that enabled building this designing and building these complex SoCs. Now use of this new AI ML techniques in this EDA tools or the design tools used for chip designing, that will further enhance ability to deal with the numerous challenges that comes with the new use cases of the chips, basically, right? So for example, the 5G and big data, all these new emerging technologies going to create, it's going to create explosive growth in, demand for these chips now, right? So, and along with that, the advances in the chip packaging technology, where now we can have multiple chips packaged together, some chips from the older technology node and some chips from the new technology node. Having that methodology called the chiplet based methodology to build the system on package, that will open up many opportunities for the, existing chip vendors and the new entrants in the market, basically. So, for example, the big data requires a lot of accelerators, right? So, the startups that are looking to enter into this space, right, they have a big opportunity here to develop the accelerators, purpose specific or the application specific accelerators. They can come out with the IPs, or they can build chiplets, partnering with the big companies or partnering with the semiconductor foundry, right? And that should, enable them to enter into the space with, relatively easier way, because now the many new use cases in 5G, big data, and all this, requires heterogeneous architecture, and the architecture where, you can use the best of the best IPs in each of the domains separate, right? And that chiplet technology enables use of, chips from the multiple vendors, basically, right? So, they could get into the, risk, the reduced instruction set computing processor, IP development, or we can get into the accelerator development. So there are many such opportunities, and the, target of having, say, 100 semiconductor startups in India in next few years, that looks possible with this kind of, emerging technology use cases.
That was so insightful of you, Mr. Tanna. Since you are now a corporate governance expert, what values do you aim to inculcate from your existing into your new role?
So I have experienced and, learned the highest levels of corporate governance at the MNCs where I have been working, right? So each member doing their own part adds up to building a vibrant and sustainable workplace, right? So, my bottom up deep experience, enables driving things from board level also, right? There is one thing that differentiates one company from another: culture, basically, right? So
Right.
bringing execution culture, diversity of thoughts and opinions in dealing with the complex issues, the data driven decision making from the lowest level in the organization. Those kind of aspects are useful in the new role, I would say. And reviewing the strategy or the roadmap are some of the other aspects, that's where I can add value, basically. In a way, I would say, my journey has already, begun in this direction, as I'm interacting with the CEO and CTO of a startup, brainstorming with them on the business model, how to bring their IP as fast as possible to the marketplace, right? And then developing their technology and mentoring the startup in, accelerating their development on the, new IPs, basically. So I would say my journey has already begun in that way.
Absolutely, Mr. Tanna. Okay, so we are building the global thought leaders community for cross-pollination of knowledge and a community of independent directors for having better corporate governance in the country. So what are your thoughts on these initiatives taken by the team of WDC?
Well, before, I got to know about the WDC, I was never thinking about, board position. I was deeply involved with my tech work, right? And, leading the innovations at my company, right? But then once I knew about this WDC initiatives, right, it has helped me start imagining myself in the board of directors role and, start thinking about it, basically. So you see, India had 500 startups 10 years back, and today, it's all startups together. It's not only the semicon startups I'm talking about, right? So we had about 500 startups 10 years back, and now today we have 91,000 startups, right, in India. And that's a big number. Now, even if you imagine that 10% of those startups going public, growing, and, going public, right? So imagine the demand it puts on having the independent directors on the board, basically, right? So the kind of initiatives the WDC is taking for corporate governance, right? It's going to create a positive chain reaction, basically, right? It will help in big way to build brand India, where, the the world believes in, trusts the Indian corporations, right? Indian companies, they trust Indian companies, that Indian companies are able, the Indian companies are believable, the Indian companies are connected to the stakeholders, and Indian companies are dependable. So that's the kind of trust can be built with this positive chain reaction of corporate governance across the across the industry in India, basically. So that's what I believe. That's a very useful initiative from the WDC.
Mr. Tanna, your expertise and passion for the subject matter were evident throughout the interview, and it was so inspiring to witness your dedication to excellence. Great. It was fantastic conversing with you, and I'm confident that your insights will inspire the future leaders. Thank you, Mr. Tanna, for joining us today. Wish you the best for your future endeavors. Moreover, trust that this initiative by Directors Institute has unquestionably expanded the participants' understanding and enriched their minds.
Thank you, Sunny, for being a nice anchor. I appreciate the flow of questions and the orchestration of the questions. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Same to you. Bye.